Good morning. Well, I'm happy to be back again and to see all your smiling faces. I still can't understand how a Unitarian church can let a Baptist preacher get in without giving his offering. Good morning to each of you. I was in Niagara Falls for about a week. I've always wanted to go to Canada, and I've been there 3 times now. And what I do is I fly into Buffalo, and then I get a lift to the Rainbow Bridge, and I walk across that bridge. How many of you have ever done that? That's a long bridge, isn't it? And I have to avoid looking down because I think, is that motion sickness or something you get? I can't do it. It just gets real weird, so I just kind of walk like that. But I had a wonderful time there. I stayed in an Airbnb, which was near the bus loop. And in Canada, if you have enough toonies and loonies, you can travel. When somebody's going, what's a toonie and a loony? That's their coins. They call them toonies and loonies. And I said to them on a bus ride I was taking one day, I said, can you imagine telling an American that you have coins called toonies and loonies? And they got a kick out of that. Toonies and loonies. But I enjoyed my trip. I did on the last day get a little bit of a snow flurry. I said, isn't that nice? The universe said, I'm going to give you just a touch. And then the sun came out, and of course all that stopped. But it was a wonderful trip, and I was glad to get back with the kids at school and back with wonderful people like you. So this morning I'm going to talk to some limited extent about being our authentic and our true selves now. And the reason I put emphasis on now is because we've gone through what many of us might consider a kind of cataclysmic political shift in our country. And that's not to put judgment on it. It's just to simply say that some of us see it as quite a change, a sea change. And sometimes when we confront those kinds of changes, it is difficult to grasp why all this is happening, what's going on, what went wrong, how did we get to this place. And so I think we need to be reminded of certain basic things about the whole living experience. And of course, I believe, as you do, that each soul walks its own path. But it doesn't help to sometimes be given ideas to carry with us to help us better perhaps understand the goings-on of life. Because I do think there are intersecting lines that we find even as we walk our own individual path, that there are some common threads that impact us and some common threads that we can all embrace. And so this morning, I want to talk about 3 things. I want to talk about, in terms of my own existential journey, what I have come to believe is the purpose of life. Secondly, I want to talk about something I mentioned before, the great polarity, or kind of divine dichotomy we find in life. And then thirdly, I'd like to talk about the choices that life presents to us and how we are placed in a position to respond to those choices that are given to us. And we respond of our own free will in the way that we choose. First of all, so I would ask the question that many of us ask over and over again. I'm not suggesting at all that I have the eyes that will dot every point of the T that will cross every line this morning, because life continuously presents us with challenges and with things that we try to grasp and understand. but I would suggest some things. So what then is this existence in this realm all about? Why are we in this physical construction that we call life? I believe that life is much larger than the physicality or this earthly realm and our physical expression in this realm. Is life, or at least what we call life, which I believe is a construction of something much larger, merely a result of some kind of cosmic accident, a disease on this planet, not soon to be cured? Are we merely flotsam and jetsam with a meaningless, haphazard collection of particles floating on some happenstance sea? Is our existence a part of some preset drama with strict rules and guidelines being dictated by some grand puppet master? Are we as minions, automatons and pawns in the hands of a fearsome monarch? I don't embrace either one of those constructions about our existence. Many people do. And blessed is each one of us in whatever position or idea we have about the life experience. I want to share some things that I believe this morning. I don't believe that those ideas which I believe are our first assumptions, they're primitive assumptions that go way back, and not necessarily meaning that primitive is a bad thing, but primitive is primitive. First assumption is first assumption. I do not believe that we are a cosmic accident or that we are pawns in the hands of some celestial monarch. On my existential journey, I believe we are beings eternally existent with creative powers beyond our imaginings. Again, I say with the words of Shakespeare, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophies. I believe that we are triune beings. We are singular outpourings of universal life, what we call souls, and that we have a mind and a body, and that we are here with a purpose. We are here for a very specific reason. We are here because there is a part of us larger than our minds and our bodies that encases our minds and bodies to carry out a prime directive, not a commandment, but a yearning. That yearning has co-created this realm with the source of all things in order to know experientially what it already knows conceptually. It has come here to this realm of relativity with its contextual field of opposites that it might know itself in its own experience. I believe that the soul, which is larger than us, is on a mission. And that mission is that it might know within a contextual field of opposites what it knows conceptually from whence it came. Because in the absence of that which is not, that which is does not exist. And what do you mean, preacher? I mean, there's no such thing as non-existence where there is no existence. Because it is a relative term. There's no such thing as invisible except against the context of that which is visible. It is a relative term. We are in the realm of relativity. Everything here is relative to something else. There is no darkness where there is no light. There's no up where there is no down. There's no in where there is no out. There's no above where there is no beneath. There's no little where there is no large or in between. All of everything is relative. And I believe that our soul, the larger part of us, is here in order to decide, declare, and demonstrate itself in its own experience. We are doing this, or we are being this, frame by frame, episode by episode, and life by life. So, preacher, are you saying you believe in reincarnation? I do. I don't believe we have only one life to live. In fact, I believe not only do we not just have one life to live, but we have lived many lives already and still have many to experience. I believe that life is eternal. And I believe, as science teaches us, the law of the conservation of energy and the law of the conservation of matter. You cannot create it, nor can you destroy it. We are energy and matter. We can take on different forms. You can even change the chemical composition of an element or a compound, and it can dissipate into a vapor, but it still exists, and you can smell it. You didn't destroy it. You just rearranged the atoms in it. And because of that scientific, that logos piece that is real, I think we have to re-examine some of our ideas about what we call life and death. Is death a cessation, or is it a transition? And what I mean by frame is this. Most of us in here are old enough to know about 16-millimeter projectors. And we can remember, some of us even in our classrooms, when our teacher said, "Start the movie." And we would wind it around, and then it would roll. And if you could slow it down, you'd see it happening frame by frame. And I really do believe that that principle applies to our existence and physicality. That we are here living life by life, frame by frame. And why are we doing that? We're doing it because that larger part of us, through each individuation of us, is savoring each moment of each part of existence like we savor a wonderful meal. It wants to experience fully every aspect, every part of that existence. And so through something like a voluntary amnesia, we come to this realm and we forget in order to remember. That is why we hear the expression, "We have nothing to learn." It is more a matter of remembering and recognizing than it is actually learning. We can look at a tree and see that the seed that germinated into that tree had all of the elements of the existence of that tree in the seed. And I believe that we, as sentient beings of a more expansive level of being sentient, certainly have enough within the seed of our existence that we don't have to learn if a tree doesn't have to learn. We do have to remember. And we're here to do just that. To remember who we are. Because in the absolute realm from whence we come, there is no relativity. There is no left or right, up or down, in or out, what we call right and wrong. It is simply all there is. And people have come back to describe it as a magnificent place of nothing but light, just light everywhere. And I believe that the universe is an expression of pure and unconditional love and the light and positivity of that. And the realm from whence we come does not provide us contextual field. So this was co-created, that we might in our own experience know who we are against that contextual field. This is why you hear masters like Jesus saying, curse not the darkness, but bless it. For in the darkness you are empowered to experience being the light. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who despitefully use you. Because it is in that opposite field that you can demonstrate who you are. To experience all of it, frame by frame, savoring it like a delicious meal. Each life episode is designed to help us do just that. The triune beingness functions like this, I believe. The body experiences. The mind gathers data and reacts. The soul observes and knows. There's a wisdom in the higher part of us that understands what's going on. Our mind, through our empirical observation, collects data, and it reacts, and generally reacts based on prior experiences. It categorizes things. But there are some metaphysical things that happen in life. There are some things going on that our limited perceptions and our empirical observation cannot quite crystallize without the help of that larger part of us. And human beings have been running around for millennia, trying to figure out with our limited perceptions things that are beyond our empirical capacity to grasp. But there's a larger part of us. Our souls have an agenda. Most of us are trying to go through this process of living without partnering with the largest part of us. That is why we are told to meditate, to be quiet, to just rest, and allow that which is the larger part of us to impart to us. But most of us are so busy ripping and running, as my grandmother used to say. We don't get much of an opportunity to get that kind of input, and when we get it, we either ignore it or find it hard to believe. So we're running around. We're trying to go through this process where the mind without the wisdom of the soul is like a ship without a compass, without a rudder, without a guiding light. So in CWG, Conversations with God, we are encouraged to ask this question in every circumstance, especially the most challenging ones. And what does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? Why is life presenting this? Why is this happening? What agenda does my soul seek to fulfill through what life has presented? Many of us think that life is a kind of scheduled, planned out, ordered thing. Life is not that. Life is simply life. And whatever it presents, it presents. But we've been given the equipment to grasp and deal with it. But without the help of that eternal part of us, we find it difficult and will continue to. Jesus is recording as having said, "Seek ye first the kingdom, and all the other things will be added." And what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? Well, I don't believe you can lose his soul. I think that was a translation issue. But you can't ignore it and continue to wrestle with things. And we nervously wrestle with things that our bodies and our minds are not equipped to grapple with. But there's a larger part of us that has wisdom it can impart to us. And if we're just quiet enough, long enough, answers will come. The overarching purpose of our existence here is the soul's agenda. And the soul is here to decide, declare, and demonstrate who and what it is. We're busy in pursuit of everything except our purpose for being here. This is the seek ye first the kingdom thing. We are busy fulfilling our physical desires. We are busy grabbing and pulling and pushing and even killing for things that are designed to accompany us, not to drive us. They are attachments. In fact, Jesus referred to them as illusions. But they're here for a purpose. And we've missed the prime directive. And we fail to see why we're here. Now, some may say, "Yes, preacher, you can talk about the soul, and you can talk about us grasping things, but there's dark energy out there. There's evil in the world. There's bad stuff going on. There is a dichotomy in our universe. Philosophers and metaphysicians of all type have grappled with it for years. This, what we call dichotomy of existence. This great polarity. The great polarity is a contextual field. We are here in this relative realm where we can experience what we know conceptually in the realm of the absolute from whence we came, and by the way, and to which we all shall return, all of us, because there's no such thing as Dante's hell and inferno. Even though our mythologies want to wrap themselves around it, we all go home. Why? Because there's no place else to go. In this realm, there is dark energy. Some might call it negative, even evil energy. But you know what? This energy flows from the same source as the energy we call light, or good, or positive. And that energy is present with us, and we all have used it at some point to some degree. This is why we cannot point the finger at our neighbors and say, "But you over there." As Dr. King said, there's some good in the worst of us, and there's some bad in the best of us. We've all used that negative energy at some point. It is a matter of the degree to which we've used it. Some of us choose this energy and do grotesquely horrible things with it. It is against this backdrop we decide who and what we are and are not. So what are you saying, preacher? I'm saying if there is no darkness, there is no light. If there is nothing we call evil, there is nothing we can call good. If there is nothing we reject, there is nothing for us to embrace. It is a part of the living condition of our experience in the physical realm that there are contextual fields of opposite. Herein lies the problem. The contextual field of opposites is there to help us to decide, declare, and demonstrate who we truly are, to experience it. The dark energy is there to help us evolve, to help us be who we are and demonstrate it. It has a purpose. It is present, and it can be freely chosen by any of us so that we might know through the outcomes and consequences who we genuinely are or desire to be. We are essentially all children of light and love, but some of us are asleep. Some of us are awakening, and some of us are awake and endeavoring to awaken others. When we awaken, we will begin to understand certain things. Your neighbor, even those we call our enemies, have the imprint of light and love within them. There are only two things at operation in human experience: fear and love. All of our behaviors are sponsored by one or the other: fear or love. And what causes fear? Fear is really a sub-expression of love. It is a kind of protective coating that we put on ourselves to guard ourselves against that which we think will harm us. And maybe the question we must ask is, why is there so much fear in our nation today? What fear brought us to this place? Should we refer to them as a basket of deplorables? Or are they perhaps a part of us that is not awakened to a certain level of understanding and awareness? The imprint of love is within us. We'll understand that we're children of light. Our first instinct is love. We are inextricably connected, individuated, but not separated. We are beings of divine proportions. We're in the realm of the physical. Life is not a process of discovery. It is a process of creation. What will we do with what life presents to us? And our Creator, our source, is not some amorphous deity, the God of our mythologies. Life presents the opportunity to experience and know through our own evolutionary process who we are, to decide who we are and who we are not. Now, one might ask, this negative energy, these horrific outcomes, this field of opposites, do we always have to have them? The answer is yes and no. On the entrance to the Holocaust Museum are these words: lest we forget. What does that tell us? It tells us that once we've experienced the effects of this dark energy, the memory is enough to provide a contextual field. Human beings, unfortunately, do not allow memory to serve us. We make the statement, history repeats itself, because we have not evolved to the point of recognizing that one horrific experience with the use of that dark matter should be enough in your memory to say, we don't want to do that again. But we engage in these repetitive behaviors, and it is because of where we are in our evolutionary understanding. We do not have to keep repeating the same things. But we are a slowly evolving species. We forgot in 2 world wars.
We forgot in Vietnam. We forgot in the Congo. We forgot in the Middle East. We forgot in Ukraine. We've forgotten in Haiti that we are doing things that do not serve us. It is not even a matter of right and wrong. That is a moving feast. It changes from time to time and from geography to geography. But we can ask ourselves, does this serve us as a species to engage in these repetitive behaviors? Does it serve us? But you know what? The evolutionary process continues. We can evolve slowly or at an accelerated pace, but we shall evolve. We cannot stop the onward process of evolution. We can slow it down in our experience, and we can ignore it, but we cannot stop it. If we decide to eliminate our species, we will simply have to rise again from the genesis of our beginning. We'll have to go back to the primal soup, start all over again, because the process continues. So then the decision we must make is what serves us, what will bring the outcomes we say we seek. If there are those among us who are asleep or encased in lower consciousness, shall we help to perpetuate the madness? And I hear Jesus saying, be the light of the world. I hear Gandhi saying, be the change that you want to see in the world. I hear Buddha saying, be the light that pierces through and drives away the darkness. I hear Mother Teresa saying, light the light of those in darkness. What do we choose, to be purveyors of light or bringers of darkness? Shall we join the madness, or shall we move in an opposite direction and say, I understand where you are, but this is not who we are? A lesson from World War II. The rise of the Third Reich. Even the most staunch isolationist had to come to the conclusion that what Mr. Hitler is doing is not who we are. And the world came together and put a stop to at least that kind of madness coming from that source. Because there are things that we see that are not us. And we have to make the determination and the assertion and the statement that I know there's dark matter, but I don't have to embrace it. And I am not going to join you in embracing it. I am going to be a purveyor of light, because I believe that light is greater than darkness, and that we are here to confront the darkness, not to join in with it, but to say to it, move away from us, because this is not who we are. We really are our brother's keeper, our sister's keeper. And you know what? Until we own all of it, we can't change any of it. It is not us against them. It is us against us. Because we're all tied together in that single garment of destiny. And strangely enough, I cannot be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. We are not all the same. We have different models of the world. We have different positions we come from. We are like fingers on a hand. We are individuated, but we are not separated. And what we do impacts each other. None of us is out of the scheme. From the White House to the most remote part of the poorest part of the earth, every single one of us is an entity that impacts the whole. We all impact one another. In a very real sense, whatever we say and do to another, we say and do to ourselves. The truth of the matter is that everything we do for ourselves. Whatever kind act, whatever loving position you take, you're doing that for you. We think we're doing it for the other person. We are doing it for ourselves, because by doing that, we are saying, I understand that every act is an act of self-definition. And when I love you, I am saying that I am loving. When I give to you, I'm saying that I'm a giver. When I embrace you, I'm saying that I embrace. Everything we do for ourselves. It is you and me defining who we are. And we cannot do that except in relationship to one another. If we did not have each other to express who we are, we would be like a white dot in a completely white room with no reference point. Relationships are what allow us to express and declare who we are. And when the darkness comes, the darkness does not come to overcome us. The darkness comes to say, I am here. You now decide to be who you are in reference to me. And the question I must ask is not why is this happening, but what does this have to do with the agenda of my soul, and who am I in reference to that? I think of Mandela. 27 years of brutal imprisonment. Mandela came out of prison. And they said to him, many of the members of the ANC said, we don't want to reconcile with our white brothers and sisters. And Mandela said to them, let me tell you something. If you don't, this nation will go up in flames. He said to them, we must put our minds over our feelings. And understand that if we want a country, we will have to work with those. And out of that, he created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that Bishop Tutu was in charge of. And in that commission, there were white policemen who had murdered the families of the black descendants who were sitting in that room. Mandela came out of prison, and he said, I can do one of two things. I can make this worse, or I can try to make it better. And one of the first acts he did to reconcile the nation was he took one of his former prison guards and put him in charge of his security. Being our true selves does not mean to curse the darkness, but to say, yea, you are here, but I am light and I'm greater. You have come that I might demonstrate who I am. Don't curse the darkness. Don't look at the situation and become hopeless, but say, even as King said, the last night of his life on earth, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. This is our opportunity. I'm going to close now with something that I read that was absolutely beautiful. Some of you might have seen it. I have a friend, Nadine Smith. She was, if she's not now, the president of Equality Florida. And in the moment of this stage in history, she said she was reflecting on the political landscape, and she wrote one of the most beautiful things that I've ever read. She said this. She said, a friend of mine reminded me tonight that nature's quiet wisdom shows us something profound about resistance and healing. To be the light does not mean to adjust to darkness, but to overcome it. When you push through summer brush and feel that dreaded sting of poison ivy, look around. Chances are the jewel weed growing right beside it holds the antidote. She said it's not random. Those dark leaves clustered near singing nettles, they're nature's remedy placed exactly where they're needed most. The pattern repeats itself across history's hardest moments. During times when progress feels fragile and hard-won rights hang in the balance, resistance movements don't emerge from nowhere. They grow from the same communities facing oppression, nourished by the very urgency of the threat. Like plants evolving defenses wherever they're most threatened, human resilience develops in direct response to the forces that challenge it. When the political climate turns harsh, that's precisely when new conditions take root. Grassroots organizing spreads like ground cover. Mutual aid networks branch out like micronized fungi beneath the forest floor, connecting isolated struggles into something stronger. The fiercest responses emerge from communities under the greatest pressure. Their very survival depends on it. So when things look bleakest, remember nature's blueprint. The cure grows alongside the threat. Our task is to notice it, to tend it, to help it thrive. The tools for transformation are already present in the landscape of struggle, waiting for those willing to look closely and nurture what's emerging. That was a beautiful statement. And each of us in here this morning has an opportunity to decide and demonstrate and declare who we are. It is not what is happening, but what are we doing with what is happening? Life is a canvas, and we have the brushes to paint the picture according to our perspective. That is our freedom. And when it is darkest, Dr. King said this, power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. No. This is not the time to wince and cry. This is our opportunity. It's dark. And the light that we possess, the darkness is calling for. To be our true and authentic selves, because without this contextual field, we cannot experience and demonstrate it.